Thank you for having us today. What a great event so far. Today, we're going to talk about how do you build a successful voice program. And we're going to be joined shortly by Betsy from Mars Wrigley. And we're going to talk about what makes a successful voice program and how at Mars Wrigley, we've been working with them to build a voice program for the last year or so. But initially, as a little bit of background for anyone that may not own an Alexa device or doesn't know about voice or isn't running a voice program, what is voice? What is conversational AI? Well, voice is the fastest growing channel in history, faster than smartphones, faster than the web even. And for the last 5, 6, 7 years, on kind of the back of Amazon Alexa, voice has been growing really, really rapidly. And voice is interesting. It's a channel through Amazon and Google, but it's also a user interface in that you can voice activate websites and mobile applications and kiosks. And it's more than just voice, it's conversational AI. So you can think about chat bots and voice kiosks. Now we're all living in a metaverse apparently. So think about synthetic humans and virtual influencers. This is all conversational AI, and it's very flexible. So there are a lot of different things that voice can do for your organization, and we'll dig into how to build that program today. A lot of great data points. The size of the market is growing quickly. There's a ton of commerce that's expected to be driven through voice in the next number of years. 75% of households have a voice device. 80% of those people are using their voice devices on a daily basis. And your community and your consumers want hands-free solutions. They're tired of typing, particularly on mobile devices, for everything. So voice is a really good solution. And what can it do? Well, it can do a lot. It's pretty much any omni-channel marketing touch point that you can think of. Voice can be a solution for that, ranging from commerce to marketing activations, voice-driven media. Voice search optimization is a pretty major emerging category. So voice and conversational AI is very malleable. And you could screenshot this screen. I won't go into all the detail, but these are some of the activations that you might include in a really successful voice program. And we'll talk with Betsy in a minute just about how we're doing this in the Mars Wrigley program versus just doing one of these projects. So let's get right into the fireside chat. Again, really appreciate everyone having us. I'm Brandon Kaplan. I'm the CEO of Skilled Creative. We're a voice agency based in New York, working with brands on voice programs. But let me introduce you to Betsy. Betsy, thank you for joining today.
Well, thanks for having me, Brandon. You know that this is one of my favorite topics to discuss. You and I could spend hours doing it, but we will keep into the time limit that we do have. So I'm Betsy Fitzgibbons. I've been with Mars Wrigley for just shy of 3 years. I work in the customer and shopper insights team, and my focus has been digital commerce and new transactions. And within that space, that's exactly how voice fell, right? It fell into that kind of merging between our DCOM and our new transactions. But just to tell you a little bit about our organization, I work at Mars Wrigley, which is part of Mars Inc., a global organization. I feel very fortunate to work for this company because they really do have principles and values that we live and breathe every day. And in all fairness, the only way that we could go and innovate in this voice commerce space is because Mars essentially lets us run by 5 principles of quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and the last one, probably the most important here, is freedom. And so with having those different, kind of principles that we follow, I got to explore voice commerce with one of my colleagues, Icy Lee. And the beauty is we got to work on voice commerce for some pretty iconic big brands under Mars Wrigley.
Yeah, it's been pretty exciting building and launching this program with you. And you always talk about kind of the 3 reasons that you're excited most about voice as a program and as a commerce initiative.
As I kind of stated, voice commerce is really just a natural extension of digital commerce. Essentially we're now talking between our digital commerce team and getting them excited about voice commerce. Additionally, one of the things that we learned right at the onset was the importance of understanding the space, because voice actually can only serve up one product at a time. Most people are used to shopping with hundreds of products on a shelf, a few on a screen, even fewer on their mobile device. Well, voice only allows one to be served up at a time, as you know, Brandon. And so you can only listen to one thing at a time. So you better be well placed in that order. So that's where, kind of the third reason is the whole why we got behind voice now while it's still growing is we just saw if we didn't get into it now, there was a real risk to reach relevance and future revenue because catching up is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, so we're going to cover, our company's adage is voice is a program, not a project. And Mars Wrigley has really kind of like leaned into that. So we're going to cover how can a company who might be watching this create a successful voice program, kind of showing what Mars Wrigley's done to be successful. And we have 6 key pillars of that we'll walk through with Betsy. And the first is just, if you're going to make a voice program, you've got to treat it like a program. And Mars has been great at this. So Betsy, how are you kind of looking at voice as a program versus a project?
So we definitely are looking at it as a program, not just a one-off project. Again, kind of early days, we just were really focused in on voice commerce, but we soon realized, just as you showed earlier in the slides, there's so many more touch points that voice can play to. And it is, it accelerates all the different points along the sales funnel, whether that be awareness, consideration, and then obviously, purchase. It also just amplifies other programs that we may have, that we are putting out there, right? So it really allows us to kind of add additional touch points or, amplify touch points in an overall program versus just kind of doing a one-off. And I think that also is going to help us tremendously once we get the results from these first pilots.
Yeah, it's been cool. Your team has really leaned in and we're launching commerce efforts and voice search efforts and some really fun creative activations that we'll show later on. So your team's definitely leaned in, and the most successful programs are just that, programs. The next thing, a company the size of Mars Wrigley, how do you bring the organization along? So we've done a lot of education. I mean, how have you kind of spearheaded this educational initiative and making a successful voice program at Mars?
Well, if you could look at my file folders, you would see how many different versions of presentations I have that I make regularly to try to bring the organization along. In all fairness and all seriousness, Icy and I just felt we needed to start educating people, a while back. We were learning so much, we wanted to share it, but we needed to start bringing the, organization along in all different cross-functional teams, because again, to bring a program to life, you need different people touching it. The one thing though that is critical is to make sure that you level set from the beginning. We didn't want people to all of a sudden think like, oh, this is gonna, increase sales by, 20% by doing one program. We were explaining that this is really, early days, test and learn. And with the different ways that we kind of shared out to the community, we did lunch and learns, we did cross-functional workshops, we did global newsletters, we've given, tons of presentations. And what's been amazing is all the different partners that have now popped up along the journey and have leaned in because they're also interested in the space. So there literally was one person that wasn't involved in insights or marketing and is now one of our biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I mean, once there's kind of an educational foundation, you can get really creative and you can invent great projects to fit into that program. So definitely a key piece of a voice program. And then we've been working with you for a while now. It's been interesting to see kind of how long it takes to bring people to the table or how things get put together. I mean, talk about kind of the bumps in the road. It's a new territory. How do you kind of give breathing room for that?
So I'd say whatever amount of time you set aside to create a pilot, double it. Because since this was so new, there were a lot of avenues that we didn't even know we had to go down until we were kind of at the head of the road. So, I would say make sure that you leave the time that you're bringing everyone along. The other thing, though, is while you're doing this, start capturing those learnings, right? So that the next time, the next round of pilots and test and learns won't be as bumpy. And then, and what we're hoping to do is build best practices so that we can, we're doing this actually very locally in the US, but Mars and Mars Wrigley are global companies. And the goal is to then be able to share it out more broadly.
Yeah, a voice program is definitely a global initiative that is often backed by strategy and research and data, and then supported ultimately by analytics. This is something that your team has been incredible at. Maybe you can tell us about your view of how you kind of launch a voice program
Sure.
on the back of research and data.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'll actually just take a step back. Initially, Icy and I started with desk research. I mean, we were just doing our own research and doing searches online just to understand this space. And then we went to our first voice summit, and that's when we met you. And now as we're kicking off or just have kicked off these pilots, we have built a research program. And I will say, you got to be a little scrappy. You need to be wily, but you need to essentially try to set up a program that has a constant theme. You might have 2 questions that you ask, consistently through, research. It can be that you're doing qual, quant, analytics, and that's exactly what we're doing, right? We're doing a mix of things to get to the answers on this program and being able to benchmark one against the other with those similar questions. But, for any kind of new burgeoning area, you do have to be a little bit more creative with the research. Obviously, grab as many analytics as you can, marry it together so that you can, kind of start building those benchmarks and best practices for the future.
Yeah, if you're starting from a good kind of researched, educated place, you launch these pilots, and we're getting there with you now on these Halloween campaigns that we launched. But the most successful campaigns that we've ever seen have come out of actually the iterations that happen after you start tracking those analytics. So voice isn't dissimilar from other marketing campaigns. You've got to trust your research, trust your gut, but then evolve it. And now we're leaning in to do that with you, which is really exciting. Speaking of partners, like partners can be a very important thing in an innovation program. So what's your kind of view been as we find new partners and platform partners? What are your thoughts?
I pretty much can say I've learned something every day this whole year, partnering with Skilled Creative, partnering with some of our research agencies in terms of getting to the research and, finding those little nuggets to go after. The goal is really to find a partner, and I feel we have definitely with Skilled Creative, is, one that, the learning goes both ways. And also, if, all of a sudden you learn like, oh, that wasn't the right thing to do. You have to have that trust and that openness, but, and then capture the learnings. And also make sure you establish the goals early on. I've had, in past lives, things go horribly wrong when one party is expecting one thing and another is expecting another for the goals, and they're not even close. So, so try to avoid that. But no, we have learned extensively from you. And I think, you in turn have also educated, Amazon, and Amazon's educated all of us. And I'll let you talk to that for a second.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we're learning so much from you about how an organization like yours and a CPG brand wants to kind of function in an innovative space. And then, we've worked really hard to develop relationships with Amazon and Google and other conversational AI platforms. And we're digging into the weeds. So some of the things that we're uncovering about even just words that Alexa might know or not know, or phrases that work really well, or how it integrates into inventory or commerce has been really interesting. So we get to push and pull back with the platforms. Amazon is learning from Mars Wrigley. Mars Wrigley is learning from us. And it's kind of this like circular education that's going on. And it's all because we're fostering these partnerships. So anyone that's trying to launch a voice program, definitely, if you've got an agency that can guide a little bit, that's great. If not, then generating relationships with these brands, whether it's through your advertising team or directly with the Alexa team, can be, really important. And then,
I did love just wrapping it up for a second, is that that someone on the Mars Wrigley side gave me an Amazon name, and Mike on your team received a name, and it turned out to be the same person, right? So
it's like siloed corporate world, but at the end of the day, very small world. And you just got to find the right few people to make these programs successful. Otherwise, you've got these kind of weird blind spots. And so partners in the space can really, really help you do that. And then, we've gone over all these topics of how do you build a successful voice program, but anything in marketing or commerce, you need to let people know. So something Mars has been really great in supporting is a full-fledged go-to-market strategy Talk about how you got that buy-in from the organization. How has this kind of come together?
Well, I think it goes back to, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did for go-to-market, especially in terms of like social media and influencers, if we hadn't been educating the team along the way. Because all of a sudden, when we could go back and kind of tap on this person's shoulder or that person's shoulder and say, hey, can you help us with this? That's how we got the different go-to-market, programs up and running, and relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things. I would say, like, we started this a little later. We were so excited about all the platforms and what we were building and the program that all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait a second, this is great. We've created all these things, but how are people going to know about it? So then we had to take a couple steps back, but we did ramp it up, which has been exciting. So again, I would say in the future, maybe start this the same time that you're building the programs.
And that's why, like, that stakeholder education piece you spoke about, bringing the organization along, like, you have all these people that want to help and they're excited. Voice is an exciting industry, right? Metaverse, NFTs, these are like edge technologies that are making great impact. So if you can bring these stakeholders along, they want to help, they want to allocate media dollars, but you got to bring them in, to Betsy's point, as early as possible. So this is like a snapshot here. If you've done everything right, you're going to launch a voice program. And this is a snapshot of some of the work that we've done. Can you fill people in on the different types of touch points that we've launched?
So yes, so this is super exciting, having our first voice commerce Halloween program out there. And it's been out there for a while, and we tried, as in all fairness, when we started, we were looking at only 1 or 2 activations. And again, because of what we learned from our own custom research early this year and where it was important to play, and then just the fact that we have, so many brands, and Halloween such an important time of year for any confectionery brand, we just felt we needed to lean in here. And so we got to do a program with Sam's Club. We used the Amazon, voice activated ads that have very short call to actions to buy products. We used arms for a new brand, Skittles Shriekers. And then thanks to voice devices and COVID, recipes have been on the uptick. So even into that with the recipes that we generate every Halloween anyway, but now put it into the voice space.
Yeah, it's been really nice. There's all these different activations. We're touching on utility, we're touching on lifestyle, we're touching directly on commerce, and then some fun marketing. So this is an example of like one little, you might as well have some fun while you're doing a big program. And this is an alarm that we made that leans into the fact that millions of people wake up or go to bed or use alarms in their homes. So we made this really cool Halloween themed Skittles Shriekers alarm, and we'll do a quick sampling of it.
I want to talk some spine-tingling tangerine. Skittles Shriekers. So now, hear the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
So we took these really cool brand assets and we worked it into this alarm, and then we kind of flipped the creative on its head. Instead of a wake up alarm, we promoted to people to do pranks and to scare people for Halloween. And we got really good uptick and really good feedback from consumers. So now we're thinking about how do you bend the voice platform in different ways. So it's been really, really great working with your team, and you're also innovative and creative thinkers. Any kind of final thoughts on voice as a program versus a project, or how you might think about this for Mars Wrigley moving forward?
No, I mean, as you know, we're starting to build plans for next year, and voice is going to be featured again on our lists. And, we just are excited to continue to learn and, test and learn in this space. It will be great to get the results and again, kind of learn from those, share that out so that we can just continue to evolve in this space. And, I can't thank Skilled Creative and Brandon enough for all the help that they have given us along the way. It's been truly amazing and a wonderful partnership.
It's been a pleasure when you get a brand like Mars Wrigley who really leans in. And it's true. When your team decided to lean in on a program, we knew that it was going to be successful, because that's the way you build these kind of principles. If anybody wants to reach out, Betsy is a world of knowledge on voice and all things brand innovation. And as I mentioned, we're a voice creative agency helping different brands kind of build these programs. So I'm sure Betsy's open to chat. I know I'm happy to
Definitely.
chat. Betsy, any closing statements?
No, just, I think you just have to kind of put your foot in the water or toe in the water and just give it a try and, and keep learning. That's the most important thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to the IAB for having us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.